Hello and welcome to the last video regarding assignments in the 2019-2020 school year. So the only videos that the only video that you'll see from me after this one will be the Divergent announcing the winner. So congrats to making it to the end of the school year. So this assignment is a review assignment. So it's going over the material that'll be over the quiz. So the quiz will be due Monday at midnight. So as you can see at the bottom, I made it really, really big and highlighted what exactly is going to be on it. Okay, so it's what exactly is going to be on it. And so I've given us an example of each on this review. And then for some of the for these last three that I'm asking you more than one about, I've given you extra. So we're not going to go over every single problem in the video, just because I wanted to give you extra problems so that you can practice if you wanted to see if you were right. So that's what is happening. Okay. So let's start at the top and work our way down. So we're starting off with a proportion. So we're starting off with a proportion. So it says find x, y prime. And then it says given xy equals 6, yz equals 4, and y prime z prime equals 17. So what we're going to do is let's set up our proportion. So it's always going to be prime over original equals prime over original. Okay? I'm just writing it out so that we make sure we're all on the same page. So that means our find is going to be on the top because it's prime. And so we're going to leave it as is. We have xy prime, and that's going to be over the original, and the original is 6. And then we're going to set that equal to the other side that we know the prime and original by. Okay, it's the same thing as doing the proportion. We're doing proportions, right? The proportions are going to be equal if it's a scale model. So now in the second one, we're going to put our prime, which is y prime z prime, which is 17, and we're going to put it over 4. Okay, so if you're doing this on a piece of paper, you can cross multiply. So this would be 17 times 6 divided by 4, which would give us 22.5. So we have xy prime equals 25.5. Or if you wanted to do the find with the right side equals in decimal form, which is 17 divided by 4 equals 4.25, and then multiply it by 6, you're going to get the same answer either way. Okay, so either do cross multiply and divide, or you can find the decimal and multiply it to solve for the missing side. Either way works. Okay, so that's proportion. You will get one problem on your quiz that's like this, almost exactly like it. If not, just the numbers will change. Okay, so for this next part, list all pairs of corresponding sides. Then write if the scale factor would be between 0 and 1 or bigger than 1. So for this, we're not going to do all the sides. We're just going to start it off so we know that we're going in the right direction. So let's start off with TU, because that's the top, right? TU corresponds, right? It's in the same spot on both figures. Okay, so TU corresponds to T prime, U prime. It's in the same spots. Okay, we can use them as proportional proportions if we already set them up like this. Okay, so that's what we're referencing with corresponding sides. So we'll do 2 more, just so we can make sure we're all on the same page. So let's do UV corresponds, so it's the same, because they're the same figure, right? Different, same figure, same shape, different size. So U prime, V prime is the corresponding side to UV. And then VW corresponds to V prime, W prime. This is in the same spots on both figures. Okay, next we're going, again, we're not doing all of them. so that way you can check your work to make sure that you're doing it right. So right at the scale factor would be between 0 and 1 or bigger than 1. So just looking at the picture, is the prime bigger or smaller than the original? The prime is smaller. If it's smaller, then it would be between 0 and 1. Okay. So Pythagorean theorem to solve for the missing side. So for each of these, I've given you 2 of the 3 sides. And so then you will need to solve for missing piece. So I am going to write out each of these on a separate sheet of paper so that we can see exactly, so I can show you exactly what I mean. Okay. So we are going to do the first problem and the last problem together. So I'm going to switch over to the dot cam so that we can, as you can see, I was doing algebra before this. There we go. Okay. So reminder that the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You can find it on the virtual posters. I'm going to check after this video to make sure that the Pythagorean theorem is on the virtual posters. You will be able to use the virtual posters on your quiz along with, any other assignments that you want to. You can use them as a resource. Okay, it's just like open notes. If I let you use your study guide, that's what this is. Okay, so we were given A and B. So we're going to plug it in. So we're trying to find C. Okay, so we have 5 squared plus 7 squared equals C squared. Okay, because we're plugging in our A and B into the Pythagorean theorem, and now we're going to solve for this missing piece. So 5 squared is 25 plus 49 equals C squared. So 25 plus 49 equals 74. So 74 isn't a nice, perfect square. So reminder that there is a perfect square document in the material, I believe it's just under classwork. It might be under trig, I don't remember. But since it's not a perfect square, we're going to turn our calculator sideways. I apologize for the weird glare. And so we're going to push the square root button to find the square root. And so the square root of 74 is 8.60. We're always going to round to 2 decimal places, right? Round to 2 decimal places. Okay. And notice how the C is the biggest side. So C will always be the longest side. Okay. So that's just clarifying. If you're checking your work and you see that your C is 2 and your other 2 sides are 18 and 25, check your math. Okay. C is always going to be the longest side. C is the diagonal, and the diagonal is always the longest. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the second problem, and we'll go back over and we'll type them in. But I want to make sure we're not flipping back and forth too quickly. So we're going to plug in our A and our C. So in this case, we have our A squared, which is 9 squared, plus B squared equals 18 squared. Okay, 18 squared. So now we have our 9 squared, which equals 81, plus B squared, times 18 squared, which equals 324. So now, instead of adding them like we did up here, we're going to subtract them because we're trying to find one of the legs. We're trying to get the B squared by itself. So we're going to do 324 minus 81, which equals 243. Since it's not a perfect square off the top of our heads, we're going to use the square root button, and we're going to get 15.59. Just when I type it in my calculator, that's the number we get, because in the third decimal place, it's equal to or greater than 5, so it rounds up, which means that it's 15.59. So I'm going to switch back over, and we're going to type in our answers. So we did this first one, so that was the 8.60. And then we did this one that did a weird page split, which is 15.59. So again, I gave you 2 more problems that you can complete on your own for practice, especially if this was a concept that was confusing you before. Okay, so identify the sides in regards to the marked acute angle. So we have a marked acute angle, it's angle E. So that means we're looking for the side that's opposite angle E. So the side that's opposite angle E would be CB. So the adjacent, the one that's attached to the acute angle, that's the leg that's attached. This would be DE because it's adjacent, it's attached to the acute angle, and it's one of the legs. And then our hypotenuse is the diagonal. So that in this case it would be CE because that's the name of the diagonal. Again, we name the size of the triangle by using the 2 endpoints of it. Okay, so now for this next one. So for the next several questions, I'm going to be switching back and forth between 25B, 25C, and the review. So it might be helpful for you to also get out those 2. I'm going to end up copying them into the virtual posters, so look for that by tomorrow morning. Just that way it's all in one place. But until I have that up, you can just switch between the virtual or between the 3 documents. So we're going to be using 25B. Okay, so I have my 25B right here. So I can flip between the 2 of them. So it says use the chart from the exploratory challenge to approximate the unknown lengths y and z to 1 decimal place. Okay, so for this, we're going to be using this row right here because it tells us that our marked acute angle is 28. We're going to use the row that has to do with when the marked angle is equal to 28. So that means we're going to be using that the opposite over hypotenuse is going to be equal to 0.47, and the adjacent over hypotenuse is going to be equal to 0.88. So let's do adjacent over hypotenuse first. So it's going to be equal to 0.88, right? Because we are given the adjacent. So 0.88 is going to equal 22.5 over z, our missing side. Right? Because that's our hypotenuse. So in order to get z by itself, the first thing we need to do is get it off of the bottom of our fraction. So we're going to multiply both sides by z. So we get 0.88 equals, 0.88z equals 22.5. So now that we have the z not on the bottom of a fraction and it's positive, we need to divide by 0.88 so that we can get the z by itself. So we're going to do 22.5 divided by 0.88, which gives us z equals 25.57 because there was an 8 in the 3rd decimal place, which makes the 6th round up. So that means z is 22.57. So now we're going to go on to our opposite over hypotenuse. So now we have our opposite, which is going to equal 0.47. So we have 0.47 equals y divided by our z, which we know now, 25.57. So in this case, the y is on the top. So in order to get it by itself, we need to multiply both sides by 25.57. So we're going to do 25.57 times 0.47, which equals 12.02. Because there's a 7 in the 3rd decimal place, which means that it rounds up. So z equals 25.57 and y equals 12.02. And then why can we use the chart from the exploratory challenge, what they call the exploratory challenge? Well, I made as the 25B. Why can we use that chart to approximate the unknown lengths? Because I can't spell because they share the same angle measurements, which means they are proportional. Okay. So we're going to do this top chart together, and then this bottom chart I'm going to leave for you to do on your own as practice material. Okay, and then we'll do this bottom problem together. Okay, so 5. In the triangle below, angle A equals 33.7 and angle B equals 56.3. Complete the following table. So what we're going to do is we're going to list the opposite over hypotenuse, and then we're actually going to find the decimal as well so that we can practice finding that. So we are looking at B first, 56.3. So we're doing opposite over hypotenuse. So we have opposite, which is 3. We're going to put that over root 13. We're going to do 3 divided by, what would that be? That would be the square root of 13. Okay, so the square root of 13 equals 3.61. So we're going to do 3 divided by 3.61, which equals 0.83. And again, we're just going to round to 2 decimal places. So now for adjacent over hypotenuse, we're doing the side that's attached, BC. So it'd be 2 divided by root 13, which equals, I don't know why I put a parentheses over here, sorry. It'd be 2 divided by 3.16. Oops. Oh my goodness. 2 divided by 3.61, sorry. So that would be equal to 0.55. Okay. Yep. Okay. So now for the second angle, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're doing opposites. So in this case, the opposite would be 2, and we're going to divide it by the hypotenuse, which is root 13. That looks awfully familiar. I think we already did this. So let's save our brain power and reuse it. And then for opposite over hypotenuse, or adjacent over hypotenuse, sorry, it'd be 3 over the square root of 13, which, we already figured out that decimal, which would be, 0.83. Okay, so that is the chart for number 5. So again, we're going to skip 6. You can complete it on your own. Think of it as practice. And I tried to give you more problems than we're going to do as a class. Okay, so last problem on the review. This is the exact same problem as we did before, but this time I changed the numbers. So the cable forms an angle of 80 degrees with the ground. The distance from the base of the utility pole to the anchor point of the ground is 7 meters. Approximately how long is the support cable? So we need to find the cable, which is here. So that means we're going to end up using adjacent over hypotenuse, because we were given this bottom side, and the support cable is our hypotenuse, right? It's our diagonal. Okay, so we're going to use our chart from 25C, right? This chart right here. So our marked angle is 80 degrees. So we go to our 80-degree column, and we're going to be using adjacent over hypotenuse. So now we're going to go to our 80 and adjacent over hypotenuse, which equals 0.1736. So 0.1736. So now we're going to set up our proportion. So we know that the adjacent side equals 7. So 7 divided by the hypotenuse equals 0.1736. Right? Because we're trying to find the hypotenuse. So in order to get the hypotenuse off the bottom of the fraction, we're going to multiply both sides. So we end up with 7 equals 0.1736 hypotenuse times the hypotenuse. So now to get the hypotenuse by itself, we're going to divide both sides by the decimal. So we have 7 divided by 0.1736, which equals 40.32 meters, equals our hypotenuse. Okay. So that is it for this video. Look for a video for divergent. I believe I told you I'd be getting that to you Wednesday. So make sure you're getting your divergent assignments in. Yes, I will be making the divergent video Wednesday because your last extra divergent assignment is due Tuesday at midnight. So until then, adios. Text or call me if you have questions.